Hello to all of my journalers, my travelers, my planners, and everyone else in between. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel today. I am Journals, and coming to you straight from a page from my journal, I'm sharing with you my number one tip to help ease the tension that comes with reverse culture shock. So real quick, I just noticed something and I wanted to point it out. I don't know how I made this mistake, but in the last video, I had 4 tips plus a bonus, I even think, at the end. So I went from tip number 3 to tip number 7, and I skipped number 5. So number 5 on the list of things to help ease the tension that comes with reverse culture shock should have been to travel. And traveling is important when you come back from being overseas because you feel antsy after a while. When you're abroad and you get used to your situation and your surroundings, even though you find a sense of normalcy, things like going to the movie theater, to the spa, to the doctor, they're all still mini adventures because of the language barrier. So now that you're back, that sense of adventure isn't there because you're used to doing most of the things in your neighborhood already. So you don't invest the time to learn new things because you think you know it all. Now, while I feel that all of the tips that I listed were really beneficial, number 5 to me helped me out the most. And I wanted to share with you how I implemented doing number 5 so that you can see that I practice what I preach to you and that how these things actually really help. And you traveling doesn't have to be an international trip. It can be to a new city or it can just be to a new state, just as long as you're moving. When I left for South Korea in October of 2014, I was living in Staten Island, New York. When I came back to the States, done with Korea for good, it was November 2017, and my family had moved from Staten Island to Brooklyn. My brother, he moved to the Bronx. Reverse culture shock for me was very frustrating. And when I realized that's what it was, I started traveling from Brooklyn, because that's where I was staying with my mom and my sister and my nephew, and I would go to the Bronx to visit my brother. And I would do that every weekend. Every single Friday, I would wake up early and I would head to the Bronx, and I would come back every Sunday or maybe Monday morning. And although I was used to hopping on a plane and doing something whenever I had spare time when I was in South Korea, here for me, I would just hop on the train instead. And that was fine. That for me gave me that release that I needed and gave me the sense of travel and excitement that I needed, because there's something about New York subways that is just really interesting. And it's interesting because you're looking at things almost as if you have a brand new pair of eyes. And here's an example. When I was here in the States before I left for Korea, there were a lot of things that I just did not pay attention to at all. And then when I went to South Korea, they would ask me things about New York, like detailed things, and I wouldn't know the answers to them. Like someone asked me one time if the Statue of Liberty like wore sandals, and someone else wanted to know what color it was and what hand she was holding up the torch. And I like for the most part I had to like hesitate before I gave an answer. Like, okay, I didn't know if she had on sandals. I thought she was barefoot. I don't know. I don't know what hand she was holding the torch in. I think she's like a bluish green, a teal. Like, I don't know. And the crazy thing is, I used to pass by the Statue of Liberty every day. on the Staten Island ferry to get from Staten Island to Manhattan. Every day I would pass this thing. And I mean, I would look at it sometimes, but other than that, I really wasn't taking in my surroundings. And I actually never been there. I've never been there. And you go abroad and they're asking you about details about your city, and then you realize that you actually don't know that much because you weren't that observant. So when you come back now to your city, you're looking at your surroundings and you're looking at all these things, not just because you've realized that you don't know much about where you're from, but just because these things become interesting to you. And so now the same way you have to relearn, say in my case, the subway system can be compared to a trip to Cambodia and you're trying to figure out how you get from the airport to your hostel, right? Or even a better one, mostly the frustration that comes with staring at the bulletin board of planned service announcements in the subway in New York telling you that the B is now running on the D line from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., or that the 2 is not running from Chambers Street to Atlantic, can be compared to a trip where you're somewhere in Myanmar after a long day of work walking around, you staring at a map trying to figure out where you go because this street is blocked off and now you have to find another way to get to your block. Same exact thing. And so these adventures, they're right under your nose in the city that you've returned to. And so now these adventures you used to have and these situations you used to find yourself in, they're really identical, you're realizing, to your current situation. And that's how, just one example of how you find excitement in travel without having to leave internationally. Now, going back to the point that there were just a lot of things that I didn't realize when I was here that I now realize now that I'm back. I realized that New York has the best subway system in the whole entire world. And I know that sounds crazy, but listen, it's not the best because it's clean. It's not the best because you always feel safe. It's not the best because it's easy to manage or there's no delays or because it's cheap. It's the best because it's not all of those things. It is dirty. It stinks. There's homeless people asking you for a quarter. Someone literally asked me for a dime once, and they weren't joking. Like, they were for real. But within all of that, right, the gloominess, within all of that, there is someone singing in the corner.
Let's talk about them celebrities, the ones you're watching on the TV, even the ones you're listening to on the radios. Pay $150 just to see a show. But the one thing I keep wondering, is when you think about you and me. At the day I was done with that show, I wasn't really all about the door. I wasn't really all about the door. But the one thing that I know, yes, bless. They don't love you like I love you.
There's people dancing. There's someone telling jokes. There's someone flipping from the poles in the train car, managing not to hit you in the head while his friend is holding a boombox. That is what makes it amazing.
Ain't high enough. I just dropped 30 bands. Then pulled up and that out. Get the wheels on the track. Yeah. I just dropped 30. I just dropped 30. Get the wheels on the track. I just dropped 30. I just dropped 30. I just dropped 30. I just dropped 30. We are one.
I've never paid much attention to really any of that stuff before. When I lived here, now I feel like a tourist in my city. And when I would travel from the Bronx to Brooklyn and Brooklyn to the Bronx, I would have my journal and I in my lap, and I would just journal, and I would just look at everyone, listen, and just take everything in, because I realized that these were things that I really didn't pay much attention to before. And now that I'm back, I'm grateful for them. All right, JPT Nation, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you found this video beneficial. I hope that you liked what I shared with you. I just want to reiterate that you don't need an international trip once you come back just to fill that void, right? Because as I explained to you about riding the subways and things that I was noticing around me that I didn't notice before, that sense of adventure was literally right under my nose the whole time. So when you come back from being overseas, and if you know someone who's coming back from being overseas, and you notice that they feel like they need to do something, that they need to go somewhere, that they need to book a flight, just remind them that they might be able to find what they're looking for, and it might just be a Metro card away. Thanks for watching.